This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Christopher Mitchell, 212th Trooper, and Silas 1610, and brought to you by Christopher Mitchell, who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon and become a channel member, and select the Pickled Producer tier, since among other benefits, you will get to make a video request every month, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. Also, while I have you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, since it costs you nothing and really helps the channel to grow. With that out of the way, let's get on with the story. As it turns out, Professor Oak's task is to make a delivery to the Orange Islands, though in this timeline it is to return a green glowing gem called the Eternal Flame to fool a city in time for its Wind Festival. As he brings out the case containing the gem, the sandy-haired man explains that the mayor kindly let him borrow it to study if it has any connection to the Eternal Flames of Moltres used to light the torch in the Indigo Plateau, but now they need it back, otherwise Lugia won't be able to find the city in time, since the flame is its beacon. Recognizing the importance of this task, even if they do not fully understand it, Ash, Verity, and Sorrel all agree, with the friends sharing a grin at the thought of meeting Lugia so soon after Ho-Oh. While beaming proudly, Oak entrusts the Eternal Flame to them and bids them good luck and swift travel, since they're on a tight deadline. Knowing they don't have a second to lose, the trio then set off, figuring they can catch a plane in Viridian City, though even when under time pressure, they do still make time to help a flock of Pidgey and Pidgeotto in a nearby forest, who are being bullied by a Spearow flock led by the Fearow who attacked Ash and Pikachu on the day they started their journey. In order to help, Ash uses Pidgeot, while Verity's Piplup also joins the fray in the name of its honor as a bird Pokemon. As a result, the pair are able to defeat the villains, though, like in canon, Ash is forced to say goodbye to Pidgeot as it stays behind to serve as a defender. While this does sadden the boy, he understands and so wishes his friend well before proceeding to Viridian, where he has Oak send over Sudowoodo to fill in the hole in his team. However, that is not the only hole, as there is a sizable one in the hero's plan, as there are no scheduled flights to Fula Island for the foreseeable future. That is aside from a rundown old blimp piloted by a trio who seem oddly familiar. Nonetheless, since the kids are desperate, they accept, with it coming as no shock when the pilots reveal themselves to be Team Rocket mid-flight, resulting in a battle as they attempt to steal their Pokemon and the flame. Fortunately, this attempt is unsuccessful, though it does lead to the blimp crashing. However, in an odd streak of luck, they do somehow crash land on the right island, with Team Rocket being sent blasting off again soon after, while Ash, Sorrel, and Verity begin making their way into Fula City by tram. As they do, the trio can't help but marvel at the remarkable view, though this isn't all they see, as after hopping off the tram they spot some boys bullying a young girl with pink hair. Naturally, the heroes step in to put a stop to this, with Ash and Pikachu driving the boys off, at which point the girl introduces herself as Margot, and after a brief discussion gives the newcomers directions to several key areas around the city, including the Eternal Flame Complex. After thanking her for this tip, the trio make haste to the complex so they can complete their task, with it being here they meet the mayor who gratefully takes the flame from them, before detailing the history of it and the Wind Festival, by explaining how once Fula was a barren island, until Lugia brought them the gift of wind which allowed them to flourish and now powers their city. As a result, they host the festival every year to renew their bond of friendship with the legendary Pokemon, something Ash beams is so cool, while Sorrel nods that the relationship some humans are able to forge with legendary Pokemon is an area of his study that he is eager to delve more deeply into. Seeing the kids' excitement, the mayor invites them to stick around for the festival as his guests, while mentioning events such as the catch raid and other games that quickly capture their attention, with Ash and Verity eagerly agreeing to join the catch race, while Sorrel instead expresses interest in checking out the science pavilion. Wishing each other good luck in their respective pursuits, the friends then split up, with Sorrel's little adventure causing him to cross paths with a young scientist named Torren, who is clearly a brilliant researcher, but struggles with the public speaking needed to deliver his findings. As the pair chat, Torren reveals this fear to Sorrel, with the younger researcher recognizing how difficult this must be, though hating the idea of all Torren's hard work being squandered due to a simple fear of public speaking, he volunteers to do the presentation for him, something Torren happily accepts while profusely thanking his new friend. This in turn has an impact on Ash and Verity's adventure, as it means Callahan is not able to enter the catch race due to not being able to borrow Torren's Pokemon or use the nervous young man to cheat. As a result, the catch race quickly boils down to Ash and Pikachu versus Verity and Piplup, as the two pairs battle it out for first place, and let off a bit of steam, though this all changes when they catch sight of a rampaging Tyranitar. As the one who saw it first, Verity quickly points out the rope around its neck, and understanding what his friend is getting at, Ash urges her to slow it down while he and Pikachu help. Nodding, Verity then commands Piplup to use Hydro Pump in front of Tyranitar to block its path, since even in its crazed state, it still has enough instinctive aversion to water to change course, though to do so it must slow down for a second, with this being all Pikachu needs to leap up behind it and sever the rope with Iron Tail while Ash and Verity run to comfort it. Now able to breathe again, the Green Goliath quickly calms down while causing less damage than in canon, though this does unfortunately eat up the last of the catch race time, meaning neither hero gets a chance to to pull ahead and the event ends in a tie. Nonetheless, neither of them are too discouraged since they're sharing their win with a friend, and when asked who the next catch will be by the MC as part of the post-show interview, both admit that they don't know, with this vague answer in contrast to Callahan's canonical boasting of Pokemon in the mountains failing to attract the attention of Pokemon hunters watching, thus giving them no reason to travel to Fula. With this finish, night falls, and as guests of the mayor, Ash, Verity, and Sorrel stay with him that evening where they meet Margot again, who is revealed to be his daughter. Due to having guests, the dinner conversation is kept away from Zeraora, so there is no argument, though Verity can see that father and daughter are not as close as they might have once been, with this causing her to bond with the younger girl, as she understands the difficulty of having a parent whose responsibilities to their work and the world at large leave them little time or attention left over for their child. Thanks to this, the group go into town with Margot the next morning where they are disturbed to learn that during the night someone vandalized the festival. Naturally, Ash, Verity, and Margot volunteer to help clean up, though Sorrel has other engagements as he heads over to the science pavilion and makes good on his promise to do Torrent's presentation, which goes off without a hitch. Meanwhile, as the cleanup gets underway, Ash, Verity, and Margot meet Callahan, though the Sonoian girl quickly pegs him as a liar and ignores him entirely, causing her friends to do the same. However, more interestingly, they hear talk from the bully kids from yesterday that this damage is a result of Zeraora's curse, with Ash telling Sorrel about this when he reunites with them later. Naturally, the green-haired boy wants to investigate the presence of another legendary Pokemon on the island, though first they must deal with Team Rocket, who are once again causing trouble. Luckily, unlike Cannon, Ash has two experienced friends to back him up here, with this leading to a very short encounter, as the crooks are defeated in no time flat like usual, meaning the effect spores are never stolen and instead stay safely in Torrent's lab. As a result, the kids are able to enjoy a fun afternoon when the festival reopens, with this leaving them all thoroughly exhausted when they return to the mayor's mansion that evening, though this does not stop Sorrel and his two friends from sneaking up to the mountain to investigate Zeraora when the mayor and Margot have seemingly gone to bed. However, this is not entirely true, as fearing they might be trying to catch or hurt her friend, the pink-haired girl tails them up the mountain, and upon being spotted attempts to dissuade them from their course of action, using the claim of a curse to drive them away. Unfortunately, this does not work on Sorrel, who states that he believes this so-called curse is a mix of coincidence and misunderstanding, while Ash beams that he bets Zeraora is lonely since everyone thinks it's cursed, so maybe it'd like some friends. This lack of prejudice towards the Thunderclap Pokemon, coupled with the friendship she has developed particularly with Verity, is enough that Margot chooses to believe this, and so puts her trust in the others, leading them to Zeraora's hideout, where they meet the electric type and see that it is still recovering from some injuries. Here Margot explains that Zeraora was hurt saving her a while back and she's been tending to it ever since, as well as keeping people from hunting it. Understanding this, the trio join the girl in helping tend to it, with their experience as trainers as well as resources like potions allowing them to do far more for it than Margot can with just berries. Nonetheless, it is still not fully back to fighting shape when they are done, which does slightly disappoint Ash, since he would have liked to have a quick battle with it for fun. Helpfully, Margot suggests that he should consider taking on the Orange League then, with the boy eagerly agreeing. From here, the night is spent with Margot and Zeraora, with the trio coming to learn how kind the Thundercat is, especially to small Pokemon like Verity's Togepi, and even offering to try and convince the people of Fula that Zeraora isn't bad so it can live openly once it's better. However, here Margot tells them that it's probably best if it stays anonymous for now, even if it must live with an unearned reputation, since that's better than being hunted by greedy humans like it was back in the old days before her dad was mayor. Respecting that it's not their place to interfere, the travelers accept this, even if Ash thinks it's unfair on Zeraora, and so return home with Margot just before daybreak to enjoy the next day of the festival. Thankfully, in this timeline there is a festival to enjoy, since here Margot did not steal the flame due to spending the night with Ash and co, and better still, disaster never strikes due to the effect spores having never been stolen, meaning things go fine, with the friends spending their days exploring the festivities and their evenings with Margot and Zeraora. However, all good things must come to an end, and so on the final day of the festival, the gang gather with everyone else to watch in amazement as Lugia appears and gives the gift of wind to Fula City once more. While an awe-inspiring sight, it does come with a tinge of sadness, as now Ash, Verity, and Sorrel must say goodbye to their new friends, though this does not mean saying goodbye to the Orange Islands, since with no GS ball to bring back to Oak, there's no reason they can't stay in the archipelago as long as they like, with Ash capitalizing on this to announce his intent to challenge the Orange League just like Margot suggested. Due to not starting on Valencia Island, this does unfortunately mean they don't meet Lapras, as well as not meeting Tracy, though this could be fortunate or unfortunate depending on who you ask. Instead, the trio catch a boat directly to Meekin Island, where Ash faces Sissy for his first badge. Thankfully, this is easier than in canon even without Lapras, as due to having seen more usage and held its own against stronger foes like Blaine's Magmar, Squirtle is able to win the Water Gun shooting gallery, meaning the race is unnecessary, with Ash getting his Coral Eye badge surprisingly easily. Following this, the gang resume their island hopping, with the next event of note being when Sorrel wants to investigate the Crystal Onyx on Sunburst Island, with this seeing him team up with Mateo the Crystal Sculptor for a short adventure that leads them to Onyx's cave. Though remembering their recent experience with Zeraora, they decide to shut their yaps and keep the secret for Onyx's own safety, with the only indicator of their success being Mateo's newfound inspiration for his work. Meanwhile, Verity gets a spotlight episode not long after, as when visiting Fugahara Island number 4, they come across an archaeological expedition, with the girl explaining she is a relative who is deeply interested in ancient stuff like this, so she wants to check it out. As a result, they're present for the Blood Moon and the Kabuto revival, with the girl going so far as to catch one of the ancient Pokemon, much to her delight, as she remembers hearing a legend from her homeland about blood moons having an interesting effect on some Pokemon. A little while later, Ash gets to have his second Orange Crew gym battle, which this time requires him to freeze a geyser of water at the top of a snowy mountain, build an ice toboggan from the result, and then race the gym leader Danny back to the bottom in a best-of-3 competition. For the first challenge, Danny uses Nidoqueen, who fires an ice beam while Ash's Sudowoodo uses Mimic to copy. Unfortunately, since this means waiting until Nidoqueen starts, Ash is behind the 8 ball and so loses the first round like Cannon. Though this is more than made up for in the second round, as thanks to being its obedient I choose you self, Charizard solos this trial with Flamethrower before Danny has even begun sculpting his sled. This means everything comes down to the final challenge, with Ash and 3 Pokemon of his choice steering the toboggan. Due to having helped him so far, Ash picks Charizard and Sudowoodo along with Butterfree, with his plan being simple, to turn his sled into a fan boat by having the 2-winged Pokemon flap while Sudowoodo mimics them. This is something Danny has never seen before, though in a testament to Ash's out-of-the-box genius, he manages to gain massive speed, zipping past the gym leader and winning easily. Following this, the group of friends next head off for the 7 Grapefruit Islands, where Ash follows in Verity's footsteps by adding a new member to his team, with that being Snorlax, though this isn't the only new catch, as with no Tracy around, when the group encounter an injured old Scyther on Murkot Island, Sorrel does everything in his power to look after it since he refuses to let it die after his childhood trauma with his Luxray. It is during this time that he recounts these events to his friends, with Ash and Verity both providing whatever support they can, so that before long Scyther is healed. However, due to having been banished from its herd, it cannot return, and instead joins the green-haired boy, with this being the first step on his own path of healing. The next event of note comes when the gang visit Mandarin Island, as here they encounter Prima of the Kanto Elite Four, who watches as Ash battles another young trainer, having been on something of a hot streak lately. Unlike Cannon, where Charizard ruins this battle for Ash, here it is his ace in the hole, earning him the win and Prima's interest as she suggests they have a quick battle on the beach. Unfortunately, quick is a very accurate description of this battle, as Charizard is no match for the Elite's Cloyster, giving Ash a long overdue humbling, though one he is grateful for, having seen how Gary and Cross became when their egos were left unchecked. And this will serve him well in his next gym battle, as following the rest of their time on Mandarin Island going like Cannon, Ash and friends arrive on Travita Island, though first Verity and Piplup must save a drowning girl, who as it turns out is gym leader Rudy's little sister. Like with Misty, Rudy is a total lech to the very underage Verity, though unlike the girl from Cerulean, Verity is having none of it, showing her acerbic side as she shoots him down in a heartbeat, since staying here with him would stand in the way of her goals. Respecting this ambition, Rudy then turns his attention to Ash, explaining that he'll battle the boy in a 3v3, where the rule is that whatever type Ash uses, he will use a Pokemon of the same type. For this match, Ash uses the same team he did in Canon of Pikachu, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle, while Rudy matches this with Electabuzz, Exeggutor, and Starmie. Unfortunately, this match does not start well for Ash, as Pikachu loses to Electabuzz in its Thunder Punch, though Bulbasaur does manage to claw things back to even with Sleep Powder. This puts the onus on Squirtle, though the squirting turtle does not disappoint, learning Hydro Pump mid-battle and using it along with Skull Bash to eliminate Starmie, and thus earn Ash a hard-fought Spike Shell badge. This just leaves one more gym for our young hero to tackle, though first there are a few more adventures to undertake, such as Meowth and Pikachu getting tethered together and needing to team up to find the humans, Squirtle starting a rivalry with a Wartortle firefighter, and Ash accidentally breaking Snorlax's ball, resulting in him having to lead it across an island on foot. Fortunately, one painful experience that is skipped are the events of Charizard Chills, as once more Charizard's better disposition means it and Ash can beat Tad and his Poliwrath first try and move on. Though Verity does nurse that since its evolution, Ash has been relying on it more and more, which might cause long-term issues for his team if not addressed. However, when she raises this with her black-haired friend, he grins and tells her not to worry since she's starting to sound like Sorrel, causing both his companions to chase him up and down the boat for a while. battle. Finally, however, they do reach Luana of Kumquat Island, who agrees to give Ash his final battle before challenging Drake. Thankfully, due to the knowledge of other regions in this timeline, as well as having companions from said other regions, the concept of a double battle is nothing new to Ash, who spends the evening getting in some last-minute practice with the format, as while he knows of it, he's still more used to singles. Here, Verity in particular is useful, since with her mother being a high-level trainer, she's witnessed her share of double battles and been told several strategies for them which she demonstrates for Ash, and thus passes the secret on to him, namely to remember that it's a team battle, not two simultaneous 1v1s. As a result of this, when he enters the battlefield the following morning, he is prepared and ready to go, making this a far easier battle for Charizard and Pikachu, as with none of their rather contrived bickering, they have no difficulty beating Luana's team of Cantonian and Alolan Marowak, and earning Ash the right to face Drake in Pomelo Stadium for the chance to call himself an Orange League champion. With no Tracy, there is no need to make a detour, meaning our heroes can simply take a ferry directly to Pomelo Island. Here Ash makes the acquaintance of Drake and his Dragonite when the Orange Dragon makes short work of Team Rocket, with the boy eagerly expressing his excitement for their battle, though Drake is a little less enthusiastic, as while he doesn't doubt Ash's strength, it's been a long time since anyone gave him a serious challenge. Speaking of challenges, Ash finds himself up against one when planning his team, as while he had originally planned to use Snorlax, it is fast asleep, with Nurse Joy informing him that it will be days before it awakens. Likewise, with no Lapras, his rotation options are fairly slim, though refusing to let this get him down, our young hero simply reasons that if that's the case, he'll use the friends that traveled with him through the islands: Pikachu, Butterfree, Sudowoodo, Bulbasaur, Charizard, and Squirtle. To this end, when the battle begins, Ash leads with Squirtle, trusting in his faithful water type, though it seems Drake also trusts in Ash's Squirtle to be a strong battler, as he sends out Ditto, with a gelatinous Pokemon instantly transforming into an exact replica of Squirtle, down to its stance and expression. For a moment, Ash is thrown off by the prospect of a mirror match, but quickly regains his composure and commands Squirtle to lean into its agility and unpredictability, since while Ditto can copy its body, it can't copy the things that make it truly unique and special. In this, Ash is correct, as by pulling off clever moves like Hydro Pump to fly around the battlefield, only to switch into Skull Bash when it gets close, as well as well-timed retreats into its shell, Ash's blue buddy is able to score the first win of the match against its doppelganger. This comes as a surprise to Drake and the commentator both, as few challengers ever get past Ditto, though smiling that maybe he didn't give the kid enough credit, the champ next calls out Onix. While Squirtle probably could handle this foe too, Ash's battle instincts tell him to let the water starter rest for a bit, with the black-haired boy therefore switching to Bulbasaur. Like last time, this proves wise, as while the rock snake may be larger and physically stronger than his first stage grass starter, this just makes it a bigger target, with Ash capitalizing on this for moves like Leech Seed that sap Onix's strength, Razor Leaves that are able to lodge themselves in its many joints, and finally a fully charged Solar Beam courtesy of the mid-morning sun that secures the challenger his second straight win. Nonetheless, Drake is not rattled, as he calmly sends out Gengar and makes use of Ash's growing confidence to show off his own tricky fighting, as when the boy tries to repeat the strategy from the last match, Gengar's confused Ray turns this back on Bulbasaur, before Hypnosis renders it helpless and Psychic puts it down for the count. This serves as a valuable reminder to Ash that he is facing the Orange League's champion, with him therefore picking Sudowoodo as his next Pokemon. Though Gengar is slippery and elusive, the young son of Pallet knows Sudowoodo can be just as deceitful, with him mimicking Gengar's Shadow Ball when the ghost attempts to finish it off. But this is not all it has in store, as just when this clash reaches its zenith, the imitation Pokemon reveals this has all been a feint, as it stops focusing on Shadow Ball, and instead appears behind Gengar to take it out with a super effective and entirely unexpected feint attack. Unfortunately, this victory is short-lived, as when Drake calls out Electabuzz, Ash assumes he's made a tactical error, only for the Electric Oni to reveal that it knows Brick Break, with this fighting move making short work of Ash's Rock type and significantly cutting his lead. Figuring the best course of action is to stay out of Electabuzz's reach, Ash next calls for Butterfree, with it being Drake's turn to wonder if his opponent has made a misstep, though, as you will see, the young challenger is actually copying him and Gengar, as having seen how devastating Hypnosis was to Bulbasaur, Ash tells Butterfree to send Electabuzz to Dreamland with Sleep Powder. Unfortunately for the champ, he and his friend have no means of avoiding this, meaning before long Electabuzz is asleep, with this nap leading just as swiftly to unconsciousness as Butterfree batters the defenseless Electric type and scores a long overdue win. However, it won't be given much chance to celebrate, as when Venusaur is brought out to avenge Electabuzz, Ash keeps the butterfly Pokemon in due to quad-resisting grass moves, but even quad resistance can only do so much against overwhelming strength, with the force of Venusaur's Solar Beam being enough to take Butterfree out in one hit. Though, to its credit, Ash's first catch does at least manage to land some super effective gust damage before it is taken out, making the road forward just that little bit easier for Pikachu, who finishes what his friend started, and brings Drake down to his last Pokemon, Dragonite. Having been informed by Sorrel that Dragonite is part flying type, Ash is confident that a well-placed Thunder will down the Drake, though, as he will learn, this is a mistake, as when Pikachu fires off his strongest move, the Dragon Pokemon tanks this, then repays the act in kind with its own ultimate attack, Hyper Beam. Urgently, Ash tells his partner to run, but by now it is already too late, as unlike in canon he is fighting a fresh Dragonite rather than a fatigued one, meaning even at his top speed, he cannot avoid the blinding light that consumes him whole and takes him out of the battle. Like in canon, Ash's second choice against Dragonite is Squirtle, and like in canon, this ends poorly, with the Water Starter's Hydro Pump Flight Trick only managing to score one hit on its opponent before Dragonite proves why it's the master of the sky by rising up and body slamming Squirtle back into the dirt. When facing such girth, not to mention the speed and force this brings to the equation, the tiny turtle Pokemon is no match, marking Ash's 5th defeat and the beginning of the end. Luckily, there is still one last friend the boy can rely on, with him calling out Charizard, who bellows as it touches down on the battlefield. Recognizing a fellow dragon, even if that is not the typing they share, Dragonite eyes Charizard up with interest, then on Drake's command launches a powerful water gun that the flame Pokemon has to take flight to avoid. However, this does not mean it is out of the woods, as demonstrating its incredible speed, Dragonite pursues its quarry before passing it and dropping down for the same kind of body slam that beats Squirtle. For a moment, it seems this may be the end for Ash's Orange League run, though showing off their incredible bond, Charizard manifests the strength to catch the other dragon, and then turn this descent to its advantage, as it executes dramatic seismic toss that sees Dragonite down in the dust while Charizard hovers above. Seeing that a battle of raw physical strength won't favour them, Drake switches to something more strategic, attempting to freeze Charizard's wing with Ice Beam when his partner returns to the air, though once again, the Cantonian Fire Lizard refuses to fail its best friend, diving out of the way and avoiding the majority of this attack. However, even at its top speed, it cannot fully evade Dragonite, with the Ice Beam grazing its wing and causing a chunk of ice to form there. This is all the Dragon Flying type needs to regain its advantage, as in the second it takes Charizard to readjust to this new weight, Dragonite rams into it with Skull Bash, then capitalizes on the disorientation that follows to land a point-blank Dragon Rage. By now, Charizard isn't looking so hot, with it being clear one more good hit will end things, and knowing just which move will get the job done, Drake commands his partner to fall back and fire off a Hyper Beam. Recognizing the danger, Ash too yells for his buddy to use a breath weapon, in its case Flamethrower, so that a moment later the blazing flames of passion collide with the unflinching light of raw power. To the surprise of everyone, these two attacks are reasonably even in terms of strength, with it being anyone's guess who will emerge victorious, though as those watching will see, there is one key difference between the battlers. Drake and Dragonite view this match through the lens of maintaining their status at the top, while for Ash and Charizard, this battle is all about breaking through, not just the wall that is a champion trainer, but also their own limits, as they have not forgotten what it is like to be weak, with this giving them the strength they need to keep pushing, until, in a burst of orange, Flamethrower consumes Hyper Beam, and then Dragonite itself, with this Inferno being too much for the pseudo-legendary to handle, as it crashes to the ground and lies unconscious, giving the victory to Ash. For his win, the black-haired boy and his team are all immortalized in the Palace of Victory, though Verity can't help but be concerned that this might further cement the trend she is beginning to fear. All the same, she and Sorrel are quick to congratulate their friend, with the trio celebrating late into the night before setting off for home the following morning. Due to Lapras having never joined their team, this is done via a cruise liner that takes them directly from Pumelo to Pallet, with the trio all enjoying some much-needed R&R. However, it seems their break will not be an extended one, as when they arrive back in Ash's hometown, they make their way up to Oak's lab to fill him in on the events of their adventure in Fuller City, though to their surprise when they step inside, they see the professor is already engaged in conversation with another man sporting grey hair and a ponytail. At the sight of the kids, the two men stop, with the newcomer stepping forward to shake hands with each of them. Then, giving them a smile that does not quite reach his eyes, he introduces himself as Dr. Zed. And that's where we'll leave things. Who is this mysterious Dr. Zed? What does he want with Professor Oak? And where will our hero's next adventure take them? Find out as the journey continues.